If your aloe is going soft, mushy, or translucent at the base, it is almost never thirsty. It is drowning, and the rot started underground long before the leaves ever showed it. Before I get into it, if you want plants that actually reward the work, subscribe and stay with me. It genuinely helps. Here is the thing about aloe. It stores water in those thick, fat leaves and in a set of plump roots built for exactly that. So drought? It shrugs it off. Weeks without a drink and it barely notices. That is why a forgotten aloe on a shelf keeps going strong while a well-loved one on the kitchen sink quietly gives up. What it cannot survive is sitting wet. Roots that stay soaked have no air, and roots with no air rot. That is the whole story. 5 watering mistakes rot those roots, and every single one of them is fixable. So why does an aloe you keep watering keep dying? Almost always, it is drowning, not drying out. First mistake: watering on a schedule. Sunday comes around, so the aloe gets its drink. But aloe does not care what day it is. It cares about one thing: whether the soil has actually dried out. Give it a weekly splash in winter, when it is barely growing at all, and you keep those roots soaking for months. They sit there waterlogged, starved of air, and slowly they turn from firm and pale to brown and hollow. By the time the leaves go soft up top, the damage down below is already done. Dig one up at that point, and the roots tell the whole story. The firm, pale, healthy ones gone soft, brown, and hollow, more straw than root. So throw the calendar away. Before you water, push a finger 2 inches down into the soil. Or better still, lift the pot and feel the weight. A dry pot is surprisingly light. A wet one is heavy. Only water when it is bone dry that far down. If there is any cool damp on your finger, walk away and check again in a few days. A thirsty aloe is patient. It will happily wait a few more days for you. That single habit will save you more aloes than anything else I can tell you. Second mistake: the pot and the mix. This one is quiet, and it kills constantly. A pretty glazed pot with no drainage hole or ordinary potting compost from the bag holds water around the roots for days on end. You water once, and the plant is sitting in a damp sponge long after you have forgotten about it. Aloe hates that. It wants sharp drainage, water in, water straight out. So here is the fix, and it is a cheap one. Use a terracotta pot with a real drainage hole in the bottom. Terracotta actually breathes. It wicks moisture out through its own walls and helps the soil dry evenly. Then fill it with a gritty, succulent mix, roughly 2 parts cactus compost to 1 part coarse perlite or horticultural grit. Mix it in a bowl until it looks half stone. When you water that, it runs straight through and drains away in seconds, exactly the way aloe likes it. That one change, honestly, saves more aloes than any feed ever will. Get the pot and the mix right, and water runs clean through the grit and out the bottom, no puddle, no rot. And yet, there is a way to water that still rots an aloe stone dead, even in perfect terracotta and grit, because the water never actually reaches the deep roots, the fat ones that store everything. Those roots dry out and shrivel while the surface stays damp on top. And here is why that is so easy to do. You tip a little water on, the soil goes dark, the surface looks watered, and you walk away satisfied. But all you have wet is the top ½ inch. Underneath, bone dry. The fat storage roots down deep, the pale, firm ones that hold all that water for the plant, never get a drop. So they do the only thing thirsty roots can do. They shrivel. They go thin and papery, while the surface above them sits damp and starts to rot. The plant looks watered and is slowly starving and drowning at the same time, in two different places, in the same pot. So stop sipping it. When you water an aloe, water it properly. Soak the whole root ball in one go. Water until it pours from the drainage hole, right out the bottom into the saucer, so you know the water has traveled the full depth of the pot and reached every root. Then stop. Do not touch it again. Not a splash, not a top-up, nothing, until the pot is fully, completely dry all the way down. That is the rhythm. Deep and rare beats little and often every time. A big drink, then a long dry stretch, then another big drink. That is how a desert plant is built to live, and it is the single easiest habit to get wrong. Quick question while we are here. Which plant are you fighting with right now? Tell me in the comments. I read them. And if this is helping, a subscribe means a lot. Right, back to it, because the next mistake is the one that kills aloes outright, and it has nothing to do with how much you water. It is about where you pour it. Here is the one spot on an aloe where water is never allowed to sit. The crown. That tight center, right where all the leaves twist up and meet in the middle. Think about how an aloe is built. Every leaf funnels straight down into that one point. So when you water from above, straight over the top of the plant, all of it runs down the leaves and collects in the middle. It pools. It sits there in the rosette, cupped and held, exactly where it must never be. And in a cool room, that trapped water just stays. It does not dry off in an hour like it might on a hot porch. It sits in the crown overnight, and the next night, soft tissue against standing water and still cool air. That is a rot waiting to happen. Only this rot does not creep up from the roots. It starts at the heart. The very center goes soft and brown, then slimy, and it spreads outward leaf by leaf until the whole middle of the plant collapses into a mush you can lift out with 2 fingers. By the time you see it, the heart is already gone. Same story as the roots. It is drowning just from the top down this time. The fix could not be simpler. Never water over the plant. Water the soil around the edge of the pot. Never over the top, and let it soak in from the side and down to the roots where it belongs. Keep that crown bone dry, always. If a drop does splash into the center, tip the pot and let it run out, or dab it dry. Aloe will forgive a lot. It will not forgive standing water in its heart. So now you have got real ground under you. You are watering deep and rare instead of shallow and often. You are pouring at the edge, keeping the crown dry, off the top of the plant entirely. Pot right, mix right, soak right, crown dry. That is 4 of the 5 beaten, and your aloe is already safer than most. But there is a 5th, and it is the sneakiest of the lot, because it hides in the one thing you instinctively trust every single time you reach for the watering can: the surface of the soil. Because the surface lies. It dries out in a single day, that pale crust forming on top, while an inch below the soil is still dark and damp and holding water around the roots for a week or more. Scrape it back, and you find it. Dry on top, soaking underneath. So the moment the top looks dry and your hand reaches for the watering can, you are almost always watering far too often. That is the 5th mistake, and it catches nearly everyone. Here is why it is so dangerous. It quietly undoes everything you just got right. You can have the gritty mix, the terracotta pot with a real hole, the dry crown, the deep proper soak, and then trust the dry surface, pour again 3 days later, and you have recreated every rot problem you just fixed. The roots sit wet. They starve of air. They go brown and hollow while the top looks perfectly fine. So do not trust the top. Trust the weight. Wait until the pot feels light, genuinely light when you lift it, and the soil is dry well below the surface, not just crusted over. That lightness is the whole test. A pot heavy with water sits low in your hand. A pot that is truly ready to drink comes up easy. In the growing months, that might be every couple of weeks. In winter, when growth all but stops and the plant is barely drinking, stretch that to every 3 or 4 weeks. Longer, even. The aloe is not sulking. It simply does not need it. And every drink it does not need is 1 more week of wet roots it has to survive. And that gives you the one rule that ties all 5 of these together. The one to keep when you forget everything else. When in doubt, wait. A thirsty aloe recovers in a day. A rotted one does not come back. Sit with that difference for a second. A dry aloe pulls water back out of its own leaves, plumps up within hours of a proper soak, and forgives you completely. A rotted aloe is gone. The roots have turned to mush, and no amount of care brings them home. So when you are not sure, you always err on the side of dry. So the next time the top looks dry and your hand reaches for the watering can, stop and lift the pot first. Feel the weight. If it is heavy, walk away. That one habit will save more aloes than any feed, any product, anything else you could do. And here is what you get for it. Get the watering right, and aloe stops being that plant you keep quietly killing and becomes one of the toughest, most forgiving things you can grow. Plump, firm leaves with real weight to them. Strong, pale, healthy roots instead of brown, hollow ones. And down at the base, little pups pushing up year after year, new plants for free. The surest sign a plant is genuinely happy. It never wanted more water. That was the whole misunderstanding. It wanted less water, sharper drainage, and a dry crown. Everything soft and mushy and translucent came from kindness pointed the wrong way, from helping it straight into the ground. So keep it simple. Water less, drain sharp, keep the crown dry. Say it back to yourself next time you are stood over the pot. Water less. Drain sharp. Keep the crown dry. Give it the dry spell it has been asking for, the gritty mix that lets it breathe, the crown you leave well alone, and it hands it all straight back to you. Thick leaves, firm roots, fresh pups, steady growth you can watch happen from one season to the next. Water less, drain sharp, keep the crown dry, and it will outlive almost everything else on your windowsill.